Hey guys, welcome to the NerdShredz Podcast. This is the first episode. Hopefully this is the first of many. Hopefully you guys enjoy this one. This is Denver the StarCraft 2 Pro. Super excited for this one. So anyway, let's jump in and I hope you guys enjoy it. Obviously I know who you are, Denver. I know you're a professional StarCraft player. Do you want to just tell people that might be listening, who you are and what you do, and sort of how you started, playing StarCraft?
Okay. So yeah, I'm Denver. I'm a French player for the team Infinity Gaming. I'm 22, and I started to play StarCraft 9 years ago, I think.
Cool.
Like in 2010, I would say. And it was basically thanks to my brothers because they played the beta, and I was pretty interested in playing the game.
Are they older? Are they younger?
Yeah, like 10 years older.
Okay, cool. So did they start you on Brood War, or are you?
I think I played a little bit of Brood War, but I mostly played Warcraft 3 before StarCraft 2.
That's cool.
I was too young for Brood War, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, you're. How old are you? Sorry, you 22?
Yep. 22.
Cool. Sorry, I interrupted you. Keep going. Sorry.
What else? What was the?
Yeah, it's just so even you're saying you grew up with brothers who played games as well, because I think that's quite a common thing. Is if you're quite competitive with your brothers, it can be what gets you started in games. So so basically your journey. So what took you from playing StarCraft in your house to take it on as a professional thing?
I started to play offline tournaments in France in 2013, I would say.
Cool.
And the first LAN that I did, I finished top 2, which was incredible because there was some good players actually, Todd, French players, I would say, like Todd, who was still playing at this time, and Millennium players as well. And I basically beat all of them except Todd in the finals. And for the first LAN, I was like, wow, that's insane. I was 16 or something like this.
You were 16, your first win? That's cool, man.
Yeah, I mean, I finished second, but it was a win for me, though.
16, yeah, that's crazy. Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And then I tried to play the qualifiers for WCS and go to some events like DreamHacks.
So how old were you when you first qualified for a major tournament?
Maybe 16, 17.
16? Wow, that's crazy.
I would say 17. Before you didn't need to qualify for it, but I think the first one it was 16. Yeah,
16. Wow, that's cool.
That was pretty cool. Yeah.
That's cool. So what? We'll talk about different game stuff in general before we jump into StarCraft. So first video games you remember playing, have you always been RTS based since you were a kid, or have you what's the very first video game you remember playing and actually thoroughly enjoying?
Good question. I would say Brood War,
really?
But maybe Counter Strike. I would say.
Yes, yeah. That's
it
cool.
Was, the 1.6 version.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, proper old school. That's cool. I like it. Well, that. It's funny. Obviously, I'll consider. I'm 29, so all the old school stuff. The first game I remember playing is original Doom. You ever played that? The really old school 2D blocky style. That's the first thing. I mean, it's Windows 95 sort of stuff, so it's good. But
I didn't choose the game I wanted to play. I just followed my brothers, and that's it.
That's it. Yeah.
You see them play, and you're like, I'm gonna do the same, and I want to play the same game than you, and that's what I did.
So with your brothers now, could you still sit and play games with your brothers? Are they still a good competitive level of playing games, or is it nothing they do anymore?
No, they used to have a good levels on some games. They were on the one of my brother was in the national team.
Oh, cool.
In basically on Call of Duty. But not now. They don't play anymore.
Nah, that's cool.
I don't even play with them.
So have you played any other RTSs, or has it always been StarCraft?
No, so Brood War, it was like
Boot Bar, yeah.
basically only the campaign. Warcraft 3 I played with, and also what's the name? Command and Conquer. I don't know if you know.
Yeah, that's
Like Tiberium, I think the
okay.
name.
Yeah, yeah. It's more like the original old school ones that I remember a lot of people playing when I was younger was like Dawn of War, Company of Heroes, Command and Conquer, like those style games, and then obviously Brood War and StarCraft and things like that as well. So no, that's cool.
I remember playing Red Alert 2.
Oh, Red Alert 2, yeah.
It was probably one of the first RTS I played.
Yeah, it's cool. It's just good to see what like game base like professional players have, because I mean, you'll see some of them start off on like not even just RTS players, but you get a lot of them will start off playing like an MMO or a first person shooter, and then they're just like, oh yeah, I'm addicted to RTSs now, and it's like, how do you make that jump? You know, it's quite cool. That's cool. So I feel like questions of like grown up sort of questions. So again, like at school, would you play games with like people you went to school with and things like that as well, or was it like, were you like quite a quiet kid at school, or would you still play like sports and things like that at school too?
I didn't meet a lot of people playing StarCraft 2 in school. No, it wasn't that famous, I would say. Like there was League of Legends at the same time. So it was. I think they all played for the people who play some games. I think they played more League of Legends than something else.
Yeah, just like the popular game.
Yeah. And when I talked about StarCraft 2, it was like, this is too hard for me, and I don't want to invest too much time into it. But I have some friends like right now they tried it, the game, but I think it's too hard for them. Like they just, I mean, they try to understand, but at some point you need a little bit of time to understand basic things, and if you don't spend that time, it's gonna be not very fun, actually.
It's definitely along the lines of a lot of the games, I think now, especially like like Fortnite, for example. You could pick that up and you could play it like not a decent standard, but you could be okay within like a week. Whereas like you could pick up StarCraft, play it for a year, and you could still be horrendous, you know?
You have 3 races to understand, and like learning one race is very hard, but learning the units and the buildings of the other races, it's a lot more complicated.
It's a lot. So another question I got asked, this is one that I got asked to ask you, is where did your username come from? So like a lot of people obviously have different origin stories over where their username came from, but yeah, that was one I got asked to ask. So
this is from the cartoon. It is Denver the Last Dinosaur. Yeah.
Right, okay.
You don't know it?
No. I'm gonna Google it now. What was it? Denver. What was it? That sorry?
The Last Dinosaur. The Last Dinosaur.
Yeah, Last Dinosaur.
I watched this when I was young, and I was a big fan of it.
It's come up with that theme tune. That's brilliant. Okay, I'll stick that in the podcast after, so you can actually hear what that is.
And the music is pretty cool as well. You should listen to it.
I'll put it on after, because I'll put it on YouTube, so might get demonetized. So yeah, I'll put it on. That's cool. Okay, yeah. So this is more like StarCraft, like specific stuff. So basically, obviously, when you start playing like competitively, have you always played like Zerg throughout, or have you like just started playing one and jumped about, or are you just like, I'm going to play Zerg, I'm going to play it professionally, or what was your like thought process there?
I always played Zerg competitively, but I started to play Protoss, and I was actually stuck in Diamond for 8 months, I think.
Oh, really?
And I had a friend who was GM as Zerg, and I just decided to switch because I was the game wasn't very interesting at this point. Like being stuck in League and not knowing how to improve, that was very boring. So I decided to switch Zerg.
Okay.
And at this moment, the race, it was on Wings of Liberty, and the race wasn't bad, So
yeah. That's cool.
I decided to.
Well, I say yeah, because I mean, especially when I first started, like I used to always, again, obviously nowhere near competitive standards, but I would just randomly pick different like different races. I would never actually pick one, and then I would get so far with one, and then just swap to the other. You know, I'd never be consistent at like one race, but yeah, no, it's cool because now again I'll play like Zerg because it's for me it's the most. I think it's the most fun, and I feel like it's the most micro intensive. Probably quite a big debate saying that, but it feels like it
I
can
think
be, you
Terran
know?
is a bit more. Yeah,
Yeah.
but actually, the thing is, I didn't want to learn build orders because I think I was young and too lazy to learn something. So I just wanted to adapt to what my opponent is doing and not doing something and then waiting for him to react.
Yeah.
So I was like, just that's easier for me. So just go for it.
That's cool. So yeah, next I was gonna say, so you have quite a decent like lineup of people you've played against, like big names, like you've got like Thermal, Serral, Raynor. You've played quite a lot of like big people. Who would you say out of all these other professional StarCraft players is probably your most feared to play against? Like who would you think is this guy was tough, you know?
The obvious answer would be Serral, I guess.
Yeah.
But I'm not that scared to play against him. You just know that, like before the game, you know it's gonna be very, very hard, and you only have 0 chance to win. But I don't know.
Would you specifically like prep? So obviously you know that you're coming against Serral. Again, I've watched back your series and stuff of playing Serral, and like even watching the commentators talk before the game and stuff, they'll write off a lot of games as like a whitewash. But that game was quite a close game. Like I think you did get 3-0'd maybe, but it was like every game was quite close. There was no like rush and it's over sort of thing. But
yeah.
So,
I think.
So do you prep for
think
these
at
games?
some
Sorry.
level- Yeah. Sorry.
Sorry. Do you like specifically prep for like you're going to be playing against Serral or going to be playing against Raynor? Like obviously you can prep to play against like a Terran, like a race, but do you specifically go, right, I know his build orders, do you watch a lot of game footage to, know how he plays?
I think the matchup is important in this case if you want to prepare something.
Mm-hmm.
Like in ZVZ, it's very hard to. There's some stuff that you can do, and you might not expect it, but against Serral or Raynor, they just expect everything from you. So, but in the other matchups, maybe like against Terrans, you can do some tricky stuff. Against Protoss as well. But yeah, against Serral or Raynor, basically that you have to play a standard game, and that's the hardest actually. So it would be easier to prepare cheese for the wall match, but it's actually not a good idea.
Yeah, because they expect, like you say, everything.
Yeah,
they've got.
They're too good to defend. And
no, that's cool. It's just again, you see a lot of. So we'll watch quite a lot of StarCraft anyway, and especially I'll spend most of my time watching like GSL. And when you hear like Artosis and Tasteless, they'll talk about how they prep and stuff like that. And when they're interviewing the players, it's quite interesting because you'll just see them talk about, no, I just prepare for anything that Protoss can throw at me, whereas other players will say, I will sit and watch this person play and try and look at like little knacks or things that they do to try and count them out. But I guess it just depends on maybe who you're playing against. I don't know.
Yeah, like some players you can expect obvious things, and they won't change some things during the match. But against other players, like I don't have a name to give, but like for instance, I played Kirazi recently, and like yesterday, and he played Make all the games, and we all know he likes to play this way, so you have to expect that and like adapt to this kind of gameplay, and it's easier to like know it's gonna be either bio or Make, and if it's both, it's gonna be a bit harder, even though it's like it's fine to play against both, but if you know it before the match, it's gonna be way easier.
Yeah, to plan it, I guess. Yeah, so if they're going like flat mech, you're not gonna get as much drops, so you're not gonna have to be as defensive. Yeah, that's cool. I was just curious. Yeah, it's just how different people think, I suppose. Another question I was gonna say as well. So like again, especially I feel like low level players, and I've never really experienced this, but I've heard a lot of people, especially on like forums and Reddit and stuff, they talk about having like ladder anxiety. So like they will go so high, so say they get to plat or diamond, and then they don't want to lose their rank, so they don't want to queue up. You know what I mean? They want to try and stay as high as they possibly can. Have you ever heard of this before?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
The fear of searching. Yeah.
Is this something? Yeah, is this everything you experienced when you were say younger or when you first started playing? Did you ever go through that?
I think I had it
Yeah.
at some point. Like when I think when I was master for the first time, didn't want to play anymore. Just
You don't want to lose it.
not lose. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. So
But
the first time you
I
hit
think
masters, how old would you have been then?
I have no idea.
Did you?
No idea. Yeah, no idea.
That's crazy, man. It's just to think of your first competition, you're 16 in master level, probably something I'll never achieve. And you were that age
Yeah.
is, it blows my mind. It's crazy. Yeah, sorry. So I'll just keep there's a few other stuff like down StarCraft sort of style route we've got. So basically, there's a lot of like, especially I think games now. So you'll get games like so again I'll say like Fortnite, even like Heroes of the Storm. Maybe not so much that now since they've had their development pooled, but for when they were in the spotlight and they'd patch to try and balance things. How do you feel Blizzard listen to say professionals or the community when it comes to making changes to try and balance the game? Do you think they listen to stuff well, or?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Like I think sometimes they make changes, but it's too much in the same time. Like sometimes they say we're gonna change this and this, but we don't want the game in balance for the moment, so we're gonna put some values like very low just to see the changes. But in some cases, like for the Nidus, for instance, the most recent patch for the Nidus, they changed the cost, then changed the armor and the life, maybe.
Yeah,
not the life, but the unload, the speed of the unload and the load.
Yeah, that's
and I think it was too much in the same time.
Yeah,
and now they didn't change it yet. So
because it's like I feel like sometimes they see a list of statistics saying this race wins more or this unit does more damage than this. Like they're seeing like a group of information, yet you'll see the community say things like a general thing like, oh, okay, Zerg's quite strong just now, but yet you'll see someone like Maru who's like Terran and destroying them all, so it's like where do they find that line between, okay, we'll nerf it for average players or people that are complaining, or should they do it for like a professional level? Because it seems like, again, the way I think about it is like you should be controlling the game from like the best possible level, and the people in the middle should sort of strive for that. But that isn't always the case, because obviously you want to still have people playing your game, so it's like I don't know how they find that balance. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, like every event, like offline events, there is some discussion about balance for all races. So if you're Zerg, like for instance in Moriel 2 weeks ago, there were some discussions like only for the Protoss players, only for the Tyrant players, and the Zerg players. And they show us what they want to change, and they want us to like give a feedback for that.
Oh, that's cool.
So I think that's important, but I don't know why, but I have the feeling that when it comes to change something, like if they make a patch for buffing Zerg, for instance, they take more time to like fix what is too much, what's broken in the change than for the other races, like for Terran or Protoss. I don't know why, but I have the feeling that they change way faster the broken things than for Zergs. I don't know why.
Yeah, Let's think as well. So obviously, I know you play Zerg. Just now, what do you feel is actually, obviously not just your like the standard you play at, but the highest level? What would you say is the strongest race at the moment? It's a controversial question. There's a lot of angry nerds, I'm sure, throwing stuff, but yeah.
I don't know. I think if we have unlimited APM, I think it would be Terran, because they have way more options to harass and like do some run-bys and micro as well.
Yeah.
But currently, I think it's like at least the late game is Zerg favored, I think.
Okay, Zerg, yeah. Okay. I mean, yeah, it's quite a lot of people seem to. Again, it was more when Zero won for the first time. Obviously, the amount of people that were complaining about the late game Zerg being, super strong, and it was almost like they were leaning on that was the reason he won. And it's bad when it comes to stuff like that. People will just say like it's almost like you're taking a little bit of the achievement away, saying like, oh, no, that's why he's won. They're really strong late game and stuff, but. You can't really sort of take that away because how many times does that happen? I mean, one of the things I always remember from GSL is actually, is it Beyond? When Reapers were really strong. There was a good period where you could just spam grenades and eventually you would just you'd kill spine crawlers and everything with them if you masked them, but like, if you look at that now, you wouldn't get away with it sort of thing. So you can't really take away achievements from the certain, the set standard of the game. You know what I mean?
Especially with Cyril. I mean, he's winning basically every event, and if it's not him, it's Raynor. And I think these players are way above, not way above, but above the other players in terms of mechanics, in terms of strategies.
Yeah.
So I don't think you can say they're winning because the meta is good for them or. Mm-hmm. So I think it's very hard to like. Sometimes for the viewers, it's like so obvious that a race is broken or something that they don't imagine how hard it is to like play StarCraft at high level.
Yeah, well that's it. If you sit and look on, say like a Twitch chat, or I'm just picking something random here, but again, if you're watching like a GSL, any major tournament, basically, you will see a lot of. As soon as a race wins, this is OP.
It's OP, Zerg OP, products imbalanced.
Mm-hmm. It's almost a meme at this point,
Yeah, we don't see that much Terran because they don't win very often, but that's when they win, we see sometimes some messages on the chat.
Yeah, that's true, man. But you've played, you have actually beat Raynor, haven't you? I remember I was just looking back. It was like last week.
A long time ago, I think.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. And I was just looking at some of the older games that were recorded on. I think it was actually recorded on Wikipedia, and it was looking in. I think you 3-0'd Raynor. It was like back in 2016. I was just like, man, that must be like, you're brushing the dust off your shoulder for that one. That's one you tell him, That's cool. So it shows because Raynor, is he younger than you?
Yeah, he's like 16, I think, 17.
Yeah.
But
that's mad. So the first time he must
17,
have been so young the first time he played you, man. That's crazy to think that you can compete at such a young age. It's mad. It's crazy.
Well, he's one of the best now, so.
That's it, man. It's because people like you back in the day taught him a lesson, and that's it. Now he's good. You see.
That's why.
So another thing I was going to ask as well. So just now, with the changes that have been recently made, in fact, last few patches feel like it's again it's a meme at the moment that no Terran buildings are ever built in their base. There's such a rush, like especially against Zerg as well. You'll almost go through like a GSL series. You can't really go through like one group without Terran Rush and Zerg at some point. And again, like people, one of the jokes that Artosis used to always make is, someone scouts the base, and if the barracks are in the base, it's a bigger shock, So where do you feel like just now, again, obviously like macro or like a rush style play, what do you think's like sort of the strongest just now? Do you think it's in a good place with the way it is just now?
You mean for Zerg or all the races?
Just in general, like the fact that like it's early or late game, do you think? Because I mean, you'll go through times, like, or even seasons where like you'll get a lot more early, like a lot more rushes or a lot more macro style games. So I'm just asking just now, do you think the game's in a good place where you get a good mix of both?
I think that they have to change some things, but the fact that we have less terrains in Europe, I think it's harder for them because I mean that's hard to explain that. How can I say that? There's like in Europe, there's like 5 or 6 terrains, and I think for most of them, they spend more time to whine than to practice. So, so at some point, you can't win tournaments.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, that's true, man. That's true. Because it is Europe is primarily Zerg and Protoss favored, isn't it?
Yeah. Like, I think Zerg, a lot of Zergs in Europe.
Yeah, it's the best race, man. Can't fault them for that. Come on.
Maybe. I don't know.
But it's good
But
as well.
the game is fine.
Yeah.
For me, like the game is fine. There is like I think you can change the niders because you can make too easily. You can make it like too easily, and you can spam it in every base, and it's very hard for the opponent to defend. Like, even in ZVZ, sometimes you have the advantage, and he can out multitask you just because he's spamming the building everywhere.
Yeah, it's got a nidus in your base. Yeah. It's the Nidus. I quite like the Nidus Locus is coming back. That's quite good. Sorry, it's good to see that being introduced more. And again, I think it did see in one of the Serral games we watched the other day. It was quite good to see like the amount of lurkers that you brought into it as well. Like a lot of the Zerg v Zerg games, they just end up being like a Roach Ravager battle, or like an early Zergling push or Baneling, and it's over. But now it was good to see like a little bit of a difference in the fact that you were holed up on bases, you're putting lurkers in their mineral line, like you're being super aggressive. It was like, I think that's what makes those style games good, because a lot of people, especially in early StarCraft, mirror matchups were quite boring to watch. I don't know if you watch much of the early games, but like watching Terran v Terran or Protoss versus Protoss really early, in like Wings of Liberty, used to be awful to watch. But just now, I think mirror matchups are better than they've ever been. Like they're so much fun to watch. Like,
it's way better now, I think.
Yeah, it's good, and that was good sort of style of playing. But it's good to see that. That's one part I like in the changes of the newest seasons, I must admit, for watching anyway. But yeah, so it's good as well because like I was saying from you're chatting there about European players, but it's good to see that especially from Serral. I don't know if it's that's triggered it or what, but especially from him and his big win, there seems to be a lot more people watching European StarCraft. And I'll be honest as well, I watched bits and bobs of like European games, but now I've started watching it religiously again. It's just so much better to watch, and when you see European players actually competing with the Koreans, it makes it that much better. You see so many, like especially in GSL, you'll see a few. Again, they call them foreigners because obviously they're just not Korean. But when you see anyone that comes in and plays, and they're actually starting to compete and get into like semi-finals levels, like seeing other people outside of Korea do well is great, you know. So what do you think for the future of European StarCraft? Do you think that's going to continue to just get more and more popular, or you think that's going to struggle?
I think the viewer count is increasing every day, so I think it's okay. But I think for the game, it's better to have different winners for the events. Like Serral is winning everything since more than a year, but I mean that's great to see. Like it creates an history around that, and it's gonna be like a legend when StarCraft 2 is gonna die. But I think it's okay. Like the state of the game is okay, and I hope for the next year they're gonna announce at least as many events as this year, because we don't know yet where it's gonna be and when it's gonna be, how many events are we going to play. So I don't know. I think we have to wait, and it's gonna be announced. I think like next year,
Yeah.
early next year. But currently, it's okay.
Yeah, that's cool. Same as something I was going to ask as well when you were talking about like practicing earlier. When you practice, or even just day to day, might not even be for a future tournament. Do you just ladder for, say, I don't know how many hours a day, say like 14 hours a day? I just practice nonstop, or do you actually have like scrim partners you'll play against to help you build your skill level?
Yeah, like I can ask to anyone, and he's gonna say yes, and we can practice together. It's basically based on my on the what I want to practice, like which matchup. Because I think, like for instance, in ZVZ, I think I'm okay. In ZVT, it's kind of hard sometimes, and well, it depends also on the players. Like in ZVZ, there is one style, and nothing else works. But in ZVT, like there is Bayer, there is Mech, and there's aggressive players and defensive players. So
it's a lot more variety.
You have to learn how to play against like every kind of plays. So now every day it's mostly ladder games, but like at some point it's not very interesting because sometimes you play like not very high ranked players, and the games becomes boring. So you just ask for practice, I guess.
Well, it must get to a point, because I mean, even most people that are sitting in Grandmaster, they must, like, they're a certain level. Like, I always feel that there's a lot of people in Grandmaster, but like the pros are almost like a tier above that. You know what I mean? Like you can sit and grind out in Grandmaster, but again, like I remember a while back, I can't remember who it was as a player. He said that he would swap servers just to try and mix it up. So he would go into like Korean servers, but then he would just get fed up of getting like all in rushed, like two base, pulling the SCVs, everything like all the time. So he would just swap back and stuff. You know, it's quite funny.
Like in Korea, it depends on the server, but on the Korean server, they tend to like do a lot of rushes. So
more aggressive.
It's kind of boring. It can be good to learn how to defend that, but at some point it's getting very boring, because when you go to a European events, they play way different than what they do in Korea. So you need to adapt. So
cool. How much do you actually watch? Like, how much do you follow like ESL, GSL? Do you actually get a good opportunity to watch it, or are you just too busy practicing?
Just the replay as well. I mean, I think it's very important to know what the players did like during big events, because when you're gonna search for a ladder game, I think they're gonna do what they've seen in the tournaments. So if you don't know what happened, I mean, if you know what happened, it's gonna be easier for you, and you can react way better than
you try to counter.
Sure.
That makes sense.
It's not even for blank countering the strategy, but just being better at what's the best answer to that, and do I execute it well, stuff like this.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. So say as well, I guess a question I got told to ask as well, another one. It was basically, obviously you're quite competitive with all the other people, all the professional players like have to be competitive. But is there people like behind the scene, or some players? So basically the question was, who's the friendliest professional that you know? Like who do you speak to behind the scenes that's like really friendly? That was the question.
Who's not a pro player, you mean?
Sorry, no, yeah. So I worded that quite poorly. So it was just saying, out of all the professional players, who's the friendliest? They were saying, like, who'd you get on with the most, pretty much?
With the French players, I guess.
Yeah.
It's way easier. So
that makes sense.
Not even, well, it's not even because it's easier, but I know them since a long time, so so that's why.
Okay, that's cool. So just finally, just a few things. So obviously, I was saying earlier before we started stream that we're primarily like a fitness channel. So we're just saying we do fitness and gaming, kind of like a combination of the two. Is there anything that you do like or have done? Do you like play sports, or do you do anything to take care of, like, say, like mental health, or just to make sure that you're on point physically as well as mentally? Because obviously StarCraft's quite a demanding game for brain power. Do you do anything to keep fit?
So I started at the age of 4, I think, playing basketball.
Okay.
And so I did it as a player and as a referee, and now it's only as a referee because I didn't have that much time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like 2 practice sessions, like with the team, per week.
Okay.
And for the studies and stuff, it was too hard to do it because I wasn't in the same city, so it was hard to go back to the city where the team is and then go back to my apartment for the studies during the week.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided this year to stop it, but I still do it as a referee. So
you still referee?
So yeah,
I'm still cool. A referee. That's the thing as well. Like, so when it came to playing, like, so I played football when I was a kid, like soccer, obviously, and it's the same. The referees do so much running too, so I guess that's a good way just to keep yourself moving, because it must be so easy to just, there's times where I'll have like game releases and I'll sit and won't remove from my desk from like a day, so it must be so easy to just sit and practice for like tournaments, like hours and hours on end. So how do you think that helps you, actually physically going and doing something? Do you think that helps you quite a lot?
I think so, yeah, because you think about something else than the game, and you can't stick to the game, like thinking about the game 12 hours a day and go to sleep and then do the same thing every day. It's not good for you. It's gonna bring you good performances during the tournaments.
Cool.
So yeah, you definitely have to do something else.
Yeah, just
and that's what I wanted to keep playing sport.
That's cool. Okay, so finally, this is just something I want to do at the end of every podcast. So basically, it's like it's quick fire question round. So essentially, it's just like quick answers, just first thing comes to your mind. Okay, just got just a handful of questions here now. So so first one, favorite StarCraft unit.
The Belling.
Feeling like it. Favorite city you've traveled to.
Montreal.
Oh, cool.
Because they speak French, so that's easy.
Yeah, so it's easy. That's good.
Yeah, I have some food allergies, and when it comes to like talking food about with someone like in a foreign country, it's way harder. Like for instance, I went to Korea this summer, and it was super hard to like know what they make, how they make the food. So it was super hard for me to like find food that I could eat.
Yeah, find out what's in it. Yeah, that does sound a bit like a pain.
So yeah.
Worst race to play against?
Terran.
Worst game you've ever played?
Maybe this is called the Isle. You're like a dinosaur. Yeah, the Isle. And you're a dinosaur, and you have to eat people to survive, but it's so boring. Like we figure it out after like 5 hours of playing.
Let me have a look. The Isle. Okay, I can see it now.
yeah. You're a dinosaur.
That's a Steam game. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Terrible game.
Favorite subject when you were at school? Like favorite class?
English.
English, cool.
Yeah.
Energy drink or coffee?
And I don't drink anything actually. Like, just water. Yeah, I don't like coffee and energy drink. I don't think it's good. So
just water. Wow, keep the mind healthy. I like
water.
That. That's cool. That's
sure.
Cool. Micro or macro?
Micro.
And FPS or MOBA?
FPS, of course. MOBA. Wow,
I sort of knew that
that's
one.
so
That was
boring.
coming.
Of course. I still play some Counter Strike with friends, but like MOBA, yeah,
Yeah.
that's for the APM. That's so bad.
Oh, yeah, APM's so slow. It's one guy,
Yeah,
That's it. When you compare it to RTSs, yeah, definitely, man. Like that's the thing. I spend quite a lot of time playing MOBAs, and there's a few folk who will listen probably do as well. But it's when it comes from playing, so I've gone from playing StarCraft to League of Legends to HOTS, and it's like my APM's just dropped as I've gotten older,
yeah. Yeah, if you play a League of Legends game and then you have to play a tournament on StarCraft,
Yeah.
you're gonna lose the first game and that's it.
Oh man.
No more.
Well, Denver, I think that's all the questions. I don't know. Basically, there was one other thing I was just going to say right at the end, and that was if somebody else, because there's one thing I like about StarCraft, and in fact, just esports in general, when say someone young wants to come in and do what you've done and become professional at a game, I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's almost like you can start playing the game, go up the ranking system, and someone can spot you when you're at the highest level. Whereas if you compare that to like a professional sport, it's like there's no professional ranking. You literally have to find a team. You know what I mean? It's a bit more difficult to get noticed. Do you have any advice for somebody that is, say, 16, 15, thinking about doing professional games or pursuing a career in StarCraft, maybe something like that? Do you have any advice to somebody that's coming up and how they should go about it?
I think you should focus on the quality of the games instead of the quantity.
Okay.
You don't have to play 30 games per day to be good, because Serral doesn't do it. He's like, I think he plays like 15 or no more than 20 games a day, and he's full-time pro gamer, so I don't think he plays that much. He watches a lot, the replays and stuff, but he does it very seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And if you really want to improve, like at least for StarCraft, I think it's pretty much the same for the other games, but like some games are you have to be in a team, like a 5v5 team, so I think that's different. But for StarCraft, I think you just have to be focused on something you want to improve, and then you add another thing, and then another thing, and at some point you realize that you're improving on something.
Yeah.
So then just try to play tournaments, like online tournaments, and maybe offline can be harder if you don't have a team or it's very far from where you live. But otherwise, just watch the other players play. Even though they're a bit worse than you can still learn some stuff.
Yeah,
like
some stuff.
I remember playing some tournaments where I had to prepare matches, and I played some off-race games on the ladder.
Mm-hmm.
And someone that I played showed me something that I never tried before, because I think that was stupid, but it worked against me, even though it was bad. I tried it during the tournaments and it worked. So just watch everyone, and it's gonna bring you some good ideas.
Yeah, that's cool. I think that's some good advice to end on. So I think that's all of our questions. So thanks for being part of the podcast, Denver. That was good.
Thanks for the interview.